Hello my soccer universe. I have to say the last match days in England and Spain were a little bit devoid of drama. I expected a little bit more. Yes, interesting results. Celta, for instance, make it back to Europe, and also we had this incredible finish where Villa and Newcastle fell completely flat as they were battling for a Champions League spot, but the big drama was missing. However, we did have some drama in the cup final in Portugal, in the championship playoff final of course, and also AZ winning the Conference League playoff in the Eredivisie, and we also had two cup finals that were though rather one-sided, and we'll start with these, and especially in Berlin where we had great atmosphere when Stuttgart took on Bielefeld. As usual, it was a great atmosphere in Berlin ahead of the DFB Pokal final. Two great tifos by both sides. However, the Pokal final then was a little bit a step too much for Bielefeld, who attacked Stuttgart from the get-go. Even hit the crossbar when they had an open net, but then they made defensive mistakes and Stuttgart were ruthless in exploiting them. It was a bad clearance where then Angelo Stiller immediately one-times it as a wonderful pass onto Woltemade, who runs one-on-one on goalie 1-0 in the 15th minute. And then it's a corner kick that is poorly handled that results in a counter-attack where Undorf and Millot both run onto the goal. Undorf puts it over to Millot, who taps home for 2-0 after 22nd minute. And then in the 28th minute, it's a dribble that gets intercepted again. Angelo Stiller onto Undorf. 3-0 Stuttgart. Half an hour played. The Pokal final was already done. In the second half, it could have been a rout, honestly. Millot adding a fourth. Then there was another one where Woltemade chalked off, but Stuttgart then really took it back a gear or two and allowed Bielefeld to pull two back through Kanya and a Wagnermann own goal. But the suspense was already gone, and Stuttgart are salvaging a rather middling season with a title after being second last season. This season, they get a title. As expected, PSG also win the Coupe de France, thus having their sixth double in their not so long history, to be honest, against the Stade de Reims team, who have more worries than this cup final as they have to play the return leg of the relegation in midweek. But this was one-way traffic. If you watch the highlights, you barely ever see Stade de Reims crossing the midfield line, let alone creating a chance. It was Desiree Doué who sets up Barcola in the 16th minute to give PSG the long overdue lead, and then 3 minutes later it was a long ball Marquinhos again to Doué, who crosses it in, and Barcola taps it home. And it's 2-0 already after 20 minutes. You feel this is done and dusted. There were plenty of more chances by Dembele, Barcola, whoever you can imagine. They had a chance, and then it's Barcola who sets up Hakimi in the 43rd minute to make it 3. Second half, really cruising. It was easy. PSG already focusing on the Champions League final this Saturday. Before the final round of the Premier League, we also had a little matter of the Championship playoff final. Leeds and Burnley already have secured the spot in next year's Premier League with 100 points each, Leeds winning that one. However, in the final, it was the Sheffield United taking on Sunderland, Sheffield United finishing third and being the favourites and largely controlling the game. Taking a lead in the 25th minute through Campbell, and in the 34th minute, they thought they had the 2-0, how it was correctly then called off for an offside. They still were largely in control but couldn't add on to that score. And so when Mayenda in the 76th minute got an equalizer, it got a really tense atmosphere and Sheffield United got nervous for sure. And it's then academy product Watson who steps up for Sunderland from the edge of the box and nicely curls it into net in the 95th minute. So Sunderland back in the Premier League next season. Then on Sunday, it was all about the top 5 race, who will get the final Champions League spots and who will end up in the Europa League and in the Conference League. But I gotta say, it was overall a dud. Especially in the first half, there was only a single goal scored. It was Manchester City who took lead through Gundogan at Fulham and got the job done. Haaland adding a second with a penalty, so City back in the Champions League as we would have expected later on. Also, Chelsea took on Nottingham Forest in a true final for a Champions League spot, unless of course it's a draw. And for a long time it seemed like a draw, but Chelsea a little bit better team, and they get the go-ahead goal right after halftime through Colwell, and there was not much that Forest could answer. Yes, there was a chance by Wood, but that was about it. So Chelsea also back in the Champions League. However, the big storyline, if you were to ask me, is how two teams that were really fighting for this final Champions League spot barely showed up. This was Newcastle playing Everton at home, and Everton were the better team and got a deserved 1-0 win through an Alcaraz goal. And even more puzzling was Aston Villa, who should have been down by 2 or 3 goals at halftime at Old Trafford. Yes, that's Manchester United we're talking about, who had just this big letdown in the Europa League final. But they were already down to 10 men as Emi Martinez got sent off for tackling Højlund, and it was denying of a clear goal-scoring opportunity. However, in the second half, Villa settled a little bit more. Still, advantage United, Villa trying to defend, because a draw probably would have seen them through to the Champions League, the way that the other results were going. And then the contentious moment that Villa fans will be talking for a long time, when Rodgers takes the ball off the United goalkeeper and puts it into the net. However, the referee whistled the play dead because he thought there was a foul on the keeper. It would have survived any VAR review. However, an inexperienced referee calls the play dead, and so the goal didn't count. And just 2 minutes later, nice Bruno Fernandes cross in, and Diallo heads it in for the go-ahead goal, and then Eriksen adds a second to kind of put a little bow on United's horrible season. And Villa only find themselves now in the Europa League, Forest in the Conference League. At the same time then, Liverpool equalized late against Crystal Palace at home. The result didn't really matter. All that matters were that they could celebrate the title in front of a raucous crowd at Anfield, and this time even TAA got a proper send-off as well. And so the Premier League trophy was raised by Virgil van Dijk. With quite some exciting playoff action in the Netherlands. In the promotion relegation playoff, Telstar managed a 1-1 at home after regulation, equalizing an early goal by the 18th minute by a El Khashati penalty. The game goes to overtime where Bakker in the 109th minute finds the winner to keep Telstar alive in the race for Eredivisie promotion. And in said final, a two-legged affair, they will meet the 16th place team from this season's Eredivisie season, who had a 2-0 and 3-1 lead in the first half against Dordrecht. However, Dordrecht leveled the scores on aggregate in the 80th minute through Ezeb. It goes all the way to penalties, where the first 8 penalties are all converted. Then Igor misses for Dordrecht, and Bosch steps up and keep Willem Dwee just about alive. I would argue even more exciting was the Conference League playoff final between AZ and Twente. Twente, who had this incredible comeback in the midweek against Nijmegen, took a 2-0 lead in Alkmaar through Steen in the 22nd and 40th minute. However, Merding keeps AZ alive, pulling one back in the 43rd minute. Then, right after that, Van Bommel in the 53rd minute levels the scores, and then it was a crazy game that was open, chances left and right. Both teams could have won it in the end. It's Sadiq who taps home a rebound from the goalie in the 93rd minute. But even then, Twente had a big chance to equalize with a great save by the goalie. Also a little bit unorthodox. However, I'd say at least just about salvage a rather disappointing season overall for Twente, who were in the Europa League this season. It ends in big disappointment. The club's season in Portugal was already full of drama, and the cup final delivered even more of that, with Benfica and Sporting meeting also in the cup final, and Benfica were completely dominating Sporting. They had a shot by Di Maria put onto the post. They had plenty of other chances. They took the lead through Kökçü in the 47th minute, who took a shot from far out where the Sporting goalie really didn't look all that well. And even then, as Sporting were desperately trying to get back into the game, they had plenty of chances, even in stoppage time when they had a one-on-one. However, then it is Renato Sanchez who gives away a penalty against Gyökeres, rather needlessly so, as it was on the edge of the penalty box out on the side. Gyökeres in the 10th minute of stoppage time steps up and takes Sporting to extra time, and Sporting then for the first time had the upper hand. They take the lead after Trincao cross through Harder, great header it has to be said, and then they were a little bit more ruthless, and it is Trincao who then seals the deal in the first minute of overtime stoppage time. Really exciting stuff. Sporting completing a double after they failed last season when they lost the cup final to Porto. The final decisions in La Liga were all made on Saturday. First, the spotlight was on the relegation race where Leganés stormed to a 3-0 lead over Valladolid at halftime, thus putting tons of pressure on Espanyol. However, Espanyol keep their cool, and it is Tempuado who converts a penalty in the 65th minute to give Espanyol the lead. A win would have seen them through in any case, and Tempuado also assists Milla, and Espanyol survive. Leganés go down. Then in the evening it was for the final European spots between Celta, Rayo and Osasuna. However, it was a little bit of a dud as well, because Osasuna for the longest time were trailing against Alaves, whereas Rayo only played on a 0-0 draw at home to Mallorca. At least Osasuna were equalizing later on. They still could not overtake Rayo. And so it was Celta, who were 1-0 down at Getafe through Borja Mayoral. However, Borja Iglesias in the 25th minute equalizes for them, and the draw would have already seen them through, given all the other results. But in the end, it's Iago Aspas who gets the winner for them in front of plenty of Celta fans in Getafe. And so Celta are in the Europa League. Rayo make a maiden voyage into Europe, playing in the Conference League playoffs, and Osasuna miss out. Elsewhere, we saw a 1-1 between Betis and Valencia. We saw Real Madrid sending off Luka Modric and Carlo Ancelotti with a 2-0 win over Real Sociedad, Kylian Mbappé extending his lead on top of the Pichichi chart, and he is the league's goal scorer. We had a Sorloth hat-trick in Girona in a 4-0 win. We had Villarreal beating Sevilla 4-2 at home. Sevilla only finishing in 17th. Yes, that's the last spot ahead of relegation. However, they were already secured ahead of this match day. And Barcelona finished the season with a 3-0 win at Athletic Club, with Lewandowski scoring a brace. However, he would have needed 4 more to beat the Pichichi. So that was our second to last journey through Europe. I was really contemplating, should I wait with this video to see also the result for the relegation in Germany, but decided it's much better to have it this way, and we'll talk about the relegation in Germany and all other decisions in next week's video. I'm planning to make a final review video where we recap all 6 seasons and look at the winners and losers of each season. So look out for that at the start of next week. In any case, please let me know which action did you follow the closest and how much did you enjoy the last match days. Drop a line below, give me a thumbs up if you enjoyed this video, subscribe to my channel if you want to see more videos like these, and I'll talk to you soon with more things in my soccer universe. Bye! Hey there! I really hope you enjoyed this video, and if you did, here are some videos and playlists that you may enjoy too. Also, please consider subscribing to my channel and hit the little bell icon so you get notified whenever something happens in my soccer universe. And with that, have a wonderful day. Bye!